Okay, good evening and welcome to our webinar. My name is Hiba Jabarti. I'm a patient senior administrative specialist. Today we will be hearing a presentation from Ms. Nada Al-Harbi and Ms. Anoud Al-Abd Al-Fattah. They will be speaking to us about the root cause analysis in high reliability organization. Ms. Nada is a director of quality management in King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center. She is an intellectual life learner professional with a master's degree in public health and various professional certification in the field of quality management and system improvement, with more than 10 years experience in the field. Well-organized person on her coaching skills and approach that helps teams improve performance and productivities, as well influencing change. Furthermore, helping organization on building a much more capable and learning system with focus on business continuity. Agile and system thinker. Welcome, Ms. Nada. Also, we have Ms. Anoud Al-Abd Al-Fattah. She is a patient safety and risk management specialist, acting director for quality management department in King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center in Jeddah. She had a master in regularity science and health safety, also Bachelor of Science in Nursing, certified project manager professional, certified professional in healthcare quality, certified professional in healthcare risk management. Also, she is a certified professional in patient safety, core team project leader and JIT coordinator for high reliability organization projects that include implementation of leadership huddle, leaders round, and universal skills training. Welcome, Ms. Al-Anoud. Now we will be kindly notice that the question and answer, you can post it in the Q&A icons. It will be answered even during the presentation of Ms. Nada and Ms. Anoud. So feel free to post it immediate in the Q&A for any question you have. Now we are moving along to our session. Please welcome with us, Ms. Nada.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hiba, and huge appreciation to the continuous effort of the Saudi Patient Safety Center in promoting for a better culture in patient safety. And of course, well known the WHO continuous effort to help improve healthcare at the global level. It's a real pleasure to be among the speakers today, and I'm so honored to present side by side with Ms. Al-Anoud, a colleague of mine. And hopefully in the upcoming 60 minutes, we can share some of the learnings that we were able to achieve throughout our 3-year journey in becoming high reliability organization. The topic is very inspiring, and I can tell you from now that 60 minutes won't give more justice to this. But we will try our best, and hopefully we can have even more series of talks around the HRO principles in healthcare. I'll be covering the first part of the presentation, and then Anoud will go on. So my part will be mainly around the HRO, the high reliability organization definition principles, and touching based on the root cause analysis image and what can we do better in healthcare. And then Mr. Anoud will take you over the application of how to conduct an effective RCA. So I can't view who are with us, but I can see that we have around 200 participants. It's really amazing to have that many people, and now it's 201. So we really aspire to have an interactive session, as what was mentioned by Ms. Hiba. Please pop in your question in the chat box. To get started, let's start with the first pool of a question. I think it's already in front of you, where you can select one choice on what is your main expectation from this webinar. Let's hear it out, and hopefully we do meet your expectation. I can see, and you can see as well, that the majority is really, يعني alhamdulillah, expectation is of all above. And we have the second highest percentage around understanding how to conduct RCA as beginners. Root cause analysis continues still to be one of the challenges in healthcare. So Hiba, if we can close the poll, I'll be very thankful. So definitely we'll have a good understanding on how to conduct root cause analysis at the beginning level. Definitely we'll understand more on HRO or high reliability organizations principles. And definitely you will understand the application of HRO in the RCA. And we're here to answer any questions you might have. So let me walk you through the outline of what is expected in the next 60 minutes. And so is the history and applicability of the HRO in healthcare today. You will learn a little bit on the integration of reliability principles into healthcare, leading a zero harm culture. And I want to hear from you really, what's your thought on the commitment to zero harm? I want to hear from you your thoughts on that. Comprehensiveness approach to event elimination. And also that's another keyword here is elimination. Can we ever eliminate event? I guess that's something to be discussed this evening. Safety event classification algorithm, best practices for cause analysis, how and why an individual experience an error, RCA team and meeting structure. And believe me or not, this is really one of the most challenging things to be honest, among the challenging things whenever you lead a root cause analysis, is how many and what constitute a good RCA team. And on the applicability part, we'll have a case study, and then we'll learn a little bit on leading causes of action failure, which is very important. Action of hierarchy, again, another best practice that we end over during our journey to zero harm and becoming high reliability, is to rely on the hierarchy of action. It's not the number of the actions, but it's really the nature of those actions. And Ms. Anud will talk to you more about that. Implementation and monitoring as a very important part of the whole process, whether it is the reliability part or the RCA part. Another thing is power of storytelling, and those that are in the field of patient safety, they'll know what we mean by that, but that's something you will learn more as we advance in our session today. So, and again, we'll touch base on why events reoccur, we identify it, we did something, why is it still happening? We'll touch base on the challenges and we will have a conclusion. So this is the roadmap to our session today. Hopefully it meets your expectation. So before we start, and I want to thank Anud for having this idea, actually, I just added the pictures, but since we are projecting to some of external to KSA, we thought maybe it would be helpful to also introduce the hospital. So King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center was established in 1975 a royal decree to build a high-tech hospital. It's a tertiary healthcare organization, and the first branch was here in Riyadh. And we have, with a bed capacity of around 1,549 and still growing with more than 13,000 staff. We have two sister hospitals that provide the same level of specialized medical treatments. So we have the Jeddah branch, which is 500 bed capacity and more than 3,000 staff, and the newly established Medina branch that was recently opened with a bed capacity as we speak of 300. The hospital's vision is to be a specialized healthcare provider of choice for every patient. And this is a very powerful vision, and it's not really as easy as it sounds. It's shorter than one paragraph, but how to be the choice of every patient, that will take a lot of effort and a lot of work. The mission is to serve society with the highest level of healthcare and best patient experience in an integrated education and research settings. We're well known for our research center as well, competing with research centers in North America and some part of Europe. The values that we educate our employees, and they are really the guiding principles to our behaviors within the organization, is accountability, which is a big thing. If we are talking about the high reliability organization, accountability is an integral part in the whole thing. I'm accountable for everything, and each person is accountable and part of the whole puzzle. But the accountability goes from the board till the staff that actually at the gate monitoring traffic. As you can see here, safety is our second value, and that shows how it is important for the organization to identify safety as a core value. So in every situation where safety has to be compromised, the value sets the tone and safety comes first. For the most part, and as many healthcare organizations, we face challenges around that. The values continues around patient-centric excellence, collaboration, and transparency. So let's start with an introduction on the first part of the session today, which is the high reliability organization, aka HROs. We hear more and more about high reliability organization and their mindfulness for the future. And I want you to pay attention to the word mindfulness. RCA can help organizations become more mindful and prepared for the future. Why do we have to wait for bad things to happen to apply RCA? So the link between the HRO and the RCA is that RCA help in mindfulness. And as we advance on talking about the HRO around the 6 principles, it's full of mindfulness. I am present, I am here, I am aware of what's going on around me to increase my reliability. So RCA help in that aspect. And what would the results if, imagine now RCA is well known as a reactive thing. If an event happens, we conduct RCA. In HRO, that should not be the case. And it should not be just on bad event or sentinel event. If we are able to conduct root cause analysis for incidents such as near miss or chronic failures, that will increase our mindfulness. And in aviation, which is considered to be one of the most reliable industries, they mandate a certain number of near miss report. I think the number is around 3,000, if my memory doesn't fail me. And they study each and every single near miss, because you will learn more on that when we talk about system thinking versus individual thinking. But a near miss is a defaulted design in the system. In healthcare, we don't focus on near misses. We, in most cases, most scenarios, up until sentinel event happened, that when we become very reactive, put resources, conduct RCA, trying to understand why this had happened. In high reliability organization, you do not wait until catastrophe happen or sentinel. You are mindful of your processes, and if you see any deviation or any near miss, something almost happened but did not happen, or an incident happened but did not reach to the patient, they conduct, or as an organization, invest in the system review or conduct root cause analysis that increase the reliability of that organization. So if we use it in this way, RCA promotes reliability that provides measurable return of investment and improves patient safety. So this is in a simple picture, what is really the link between high reliability and RCA? But the question is, why are we even talking about high reliability? That's something we will have more discussion in the upcoming slides. So going back to root cause analysis, what was the problem of the regular RCA? As I mentioned, RCA has an image problem. I do RCA when I have a sentinel or when I have a bad event. And because various regulatory agency requires RCA to be used under specific circumstances, usually following an adverse event, the tool is primarily viewed as reactive. So when these sentinel events, and by sentinel event, these are the preventable high level of harm, whether it's a permanent loss of function or death, most of organizations conduct RCA, and it's called the microscope, where we want to know what really behind this and take a deeper look into the underlying causes of those sentinel. So in that, RCA is often viewed as money taker because they don't use the root cause analysis process as a way for preventing system failure, but it's been used as a reactive way to look at individual incident and try to focus on that narrow aspect of medical errors or preventable harm. So it has that image of resource consumption because it's been used on that only. So talking about the HRO in healthcare, a book is really highly recommended to be read by you guys. It's called Managing the Unexpected. And it was the seed for what later became the high reliability organization. The book was released in 2007. HROs, or high reliability organization, are organizations that have succeeded in avoiding catastrophes in an environment where normal accident can be expected due to risk factors and complexity. So here you are in a very complex organization with so many risk factors, and we don't need to mention healthcare and the risk factors, whether it is associated with patient, it is associated with processes, it is associated with the environment design, and also the staff, which are human and have their own shortcomings. So you have this environment that is full of risk factors, and now the more we advance in healthcare, the more complex it became, where to avoid harm, it's almost really impossible. But HRO tells us that no, it is actually possible. Hiba, I don't know if we have any questions. Please stop me if there are any questions that needs to be answered or any comment that worth clarification. But anyways, it got my attention. A question. Yeah, go ahead.
Another, just I'm reviewing the question so far, and I think you just already answered that question, which is they want to know more what is high reliable organization, and to become high reliable organization, and if your facility is high reliable, please share your experience and differences between high reliable and resilience care.
Okay, Denise, I think Batullah, thank you very much for the question. Very, very interesting, the second part. But let me go back to your first question. HRO it's a journey. You can never say, okay, now we are high reliable organization. But for the most part, we have evidence that our reliability had really increased significantly due to the effort and the many initiatives and the training and the whole program and the leadership support. We have evidences of decreasing harm, better capturing harm, and increasing the overall reliability. But still, it's a journey. We're there, and we started around 2017, 18. Is it العنود? That's when we started. So that is relatively recent. But even with that, and even during COVID pandemic, the resiliency that you mentioned came to life. And the principles and the concept and the initiatives and the program and the training paid off. So for the second part on the difference between HRO and resilience care, resiliency is part of the HRO. If you have the HRO principles really embedded and concepts really being walked by the employees, you would see resilience, because it's just an outcome for becoming an HRO. Mr. Abdullah says, so you mean we can use it as preventative measure? Which one you're talking about, the HRO or the RCA? Please clarify your question so to help me answer you correctly. And then measuring the HRO, definitely we will come to that. There are frameworks that we use to measure our journey, many actually, but the main one, what we call the reliability index. All right. Now, what do we mean by zero harm, and what is it from a leader's perspective? Zero harm is a very controversial statement, and we have so many skeptical individuals within healthcare that don't really necessarily believe in zero harm. But there are so many other leaders and healthcare providers, professionals that do believe in zero harm. And taking the journey, zero harm is definitely attainable, but it takes the whole village. It should come from up down and from down up. It's not one man's vision or a team vision. It's not the quality management. It's the whole organization. And if it's to be successful, it needs to be led by the top management in the organization. Now, let's go to our second poll question. So if we can pull it, please. What is reliability? Is it the overall consistency of a measure, or is it achieving maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort, or is it A and B? Okay. So we have almost 51% of those that took the poll says that it's both. It's the overall consistency of a measure, and it is the achieving maximum productivity with minimum effort. العنود إيش رأيك؟ عنود تسمعيني؟ أحيانا بيهنج المايك. I'll wait for العنود to be.
عفوا ندى، ما سمعتك، علق شوية. What was your question?
ايوه كنت باخذ رايك بالريزلت، يعني الماجوريتي almost 51% قالوا انه هي A and B. حبيت اخذ تعليقك، ايش رايك؟
I think both correct, because you know, as you know, reliability is overall consistency of measure. So we want to repeat the same process and measure. It's repeatable, and this is one of the main you know, like feature of HRO. It's repeatable and with achieving maximum productivity and minimum waste. So A and B, it's correct.
Thank you so much. I have a question here. One is from our colleague, Mr. Ali, and he says, why is root cause analysis is more important? So my question back to you, more important than what? If you can please clarify to be able to answer. And the comment from Ms. Fatima, she says that I think zero harm might be under-reporting of events. How can we be sure 100% that we are nearby zero harm? How can we make our system more sensitive to event? This should be our goal, in my opinion, and we all agree with you, Fatima, and this is what the HRO help us. And Ms. Al-Anoud will touch base on increasing the sensitivity of the event capture, how as part of our HRO journey, we're able to capture harm in a better way. And in many organizations that took the HRO journey or even try to improve the culture of safety, you would see a raise on the reporting. Eventually, the number of reported events should continue to grow, but the harm level should at certain point decline. It shouldn't be at, the picture shouldn't be at the beginning, it should be mid towards the end of the project. And we have actually achieved that. We have beautiful slide that shows the reporting habits versus the harm event. So remember going back to the near miss and the comment on aviation, how they mandate almost 3,000 near miss. This is exactly what it is, Fatima. We need to report more so that we understand more. And in one of the slides that will come up shortly is we'll touch base more on how system barriers fail us and how we end up having errors. Great comments and great questions. So more on reliability, what do we mean by reliability? And statistics, in simple, which is the generic definition of it, it's a psychometric, in statistics, and psychometrics, reliability is the overall consistency of a measure. You have a measure that is consistent every time, gives you the same the result accurately, no matter what, and even when conditions changes, the metrics doesn't change. It always gives you a reliable result. We can see them more with probably reliability on fields such as lab, right, when they use tests and the test should be reliable. So it's a measure that is said to have a high reliability if it produces similar results under consistent condition. So for example, a medical thermometer is a reliable tool that would measure the correct temperature each time you use it. All right, let's pause a little bit here and take our third question. How many traits are in a high reliability organization? And this is just to prepare you for what's coming. So Hiba, if you can please pull the poll.
Just the technical issues with the polling. Just type your answer in the chat. I will look at it very quickly so we can move to the next. Okay, five, 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 five traits. Very good. I think Nada, most
Yes,
of them just get it right.
Are you satisfied with their answers, yeah, Lanwood?
يعني I think يعني most of them mashallah they did it they get it good, so we can continue.
Thank you. So when a lot of talk that came around the high reliability organization, or at the time what was considered safe industries or safe organization, a bunch of researchers actually studies many of those what were considered safe, looking for traits. And they say, okay, so how come this industry is safer than other, although it's more dangerous than others? And for example, aviation is considered way more safer than healthcare, although it's more dangerous, right? Imagine that the whole industry is on flying, which is in the sky, right? But we are in healthcare grounded, but still we have so many harms. So they identify 5 traits if you want to be a high reliable organization, or to be honest, even if you want to be a high reliable professional or high reliable individual, you should consider those 5 traits. Those are like checklists. And as I'll talk more about them, but they became the framework on how to conduct or how to undertake the HRO program. So preoccupation with failure is one of the traits. So those organizations and their staff, they always they are preoccupied with failure, and that's not a negative thing. So if I come in a busy ER and from the morning, my way of thinking should be on what could go wrong, so I am well prepared. And that's not only on me, but also on the team itself. Reluctant to simplify is those HROs, they don't shy away from simplifying things. So I don't just take things as they are. I should study what's behind it and understand it. And even if it makes sense and to reassure me, I still should not simplify it. What I mean is, so if there is a process that, oh, sounds to be simple, I need to study it well to make sure I am reliable enough to conduct that. Sensitivity to operation, they are really sensitive in terms of well understanding mindfulness of their processes and operation, to the way that if anything deviate, they capture it. So I know what is my operation should look like, and if there was any deviation, easy to capture it. And that results on commitment to resilience. HRO are organization that's easily bounce back if they face any issues and catastrophe. And the pandemic gave us excellent examples on how governments and country managed COVID, and the impact of COVID in some of well-known healthcare system failed, right? Versus other healthcare systems that were actually more resilient, and they, even if the COVID hit badly at the beginning, they were able to bounce back and flatten the curve. Deference to expertise is one of the most important traits on high reliability organization. Decisions are not made on the top level, especially the ones around clinical and operations and processes. They are deferred to the expert. If there was a policy that needs to be made, or if there was a process that needs to be designed, and for example, on preventing the spread of infection, quality is not the expert. Infection control are the expert. If a process needs to be established around managing infiltration of an IV line, quality not the expert, the nursing are the expert. They know what needs to be done. But at the same time, in HRO and even in our hospital, we work as a team. But we don't claim to be expert in everything. We defer to the expertise because they'll give you the best input that will increase your reliability, because it's coming from subject matter experts. So those basic messages is so their basic message is that expectation can get you into trouble unless you create a mindful infrastructure that continually applying all of the 5 principles. And I think this comment is really linked. Okay, let's go quickly to pool number 4. Reliability principle began to be integrated into healthcare through the Joint Commission's requirements that hospital use FMEA, failure mode effect analysis, and root causes in the mid of the 1990s. Is this statement correct or false? Or if you don't know, that's also a good question. That's also a good. So I guess 50% says it's a true statement and 37% they didn't know. So let's learn together as we advance if this statement was corrected or not. I want to gain your attention, so I'm not going to answer. So let's learn together. So now you could see the logo here, so that indicates something. But the integration of reliability principles into healthcare came actually from the Joint Commission, where or some of the application came out of the Joint Commission requirements to conduct failure mode effect analysis, which is one of the basic risk management tools. And we know that risk management is the upper framework on high reliability, because it's all about the future, it's all about the anticipation, it's all about thinking on what could go wrong. The second statement is around Rick Crati, who currently patient safety advisor at GCI, and he was a system engineer with the US space program in the 1960s before becoming a surgeon. He understood from his work in the system engineering that people make mistakes, and that is not a cause of failure, but rather a condition of function that must be incorporated into the design of the system. This is really the key message here. And if we can send it over to those 285, I think personally, I would have achieved the target from this session. What we suffer from and what is the enemy of the high reliability organization or even patient safety is that we think that people make mistakes because people make mistakes. We need to change this and view the harm in healthcare in a different way. Up to 85% of errors that happen actually due to faulty design in the system. So, and how this can help us by fixing the system design around people, you could actually reduce the harm by 80 to 85%. Yes, there is that still 50% where it is completely individual failure, it's completely human failure, but the majority is system failure. So as a result of the effort of Rick in the 1996, the Joint Commission issued a framework for root cause analysis in response to a sentinel event. So even the development of the RCA framework came as a reaction to a sentinel that happened. And this was the beginning of the formal transition of reliability principles into the healthcare sector. In that transition, we understand that all organizations are systems, and this is also the key message. All systems have input, transformation of those inputs in some form or fashion, and outputs. Given this, these enduring reliability principles can apply anywhere and are completely transferable. So when you change the way you look at things from individual to system, then I guess the statement he says that the system has input, process, and output. And if you apply reliability principles on the input part, the process part, or the output part, you become, you increase your reliability. Another full question is around the current approach to RCA or root cause analysis. So do you think that the current approach to RCA contributing to our failure to improve patient safety? Yes or no? I can see that almost 73% agree to this, and I second that. I think acknowledging the problem is half of the solution. So, and that indicates that we really have to change the way we approach RCA, and that's why we're having this session with you guys. So I'm happy that almost 37 of you guys believe in this. So what can we do to leading zero harm culture? What is the priority? So priority is not a hard concept to understand, but is a very difficult to make reality. So we define priority as management has decided to support achieving reliability behaviors by properly allocating funding and backing it up with appropriate policies and procedures. And that is Latino in the 1985. So the key message here is the management supported the reliability behavior and providing it with the fund and created the system here. So this is that first priority. So having a management that believes in zero harm, supported with fund and creating a system around it. And this is almost 30, 40 years ago. So what does that require? Definitely it requires a cultural shift from leadership that recognize preventative action or pro-action as being more desirable than reaction. So again, this is a mind shift in the way leadership should think, where now we need to think of being more proactive in the way that we prevent harm than just preventative action. Leadership cannot just talk about reliability. Leaders' action have to demonstrate a serious effort, including financial support, as mentioned before, to implement the required infrastructure to support a proactive behavior. And I could not have agreed more with this statement. And I think one of the key success factors for the success of the HRO journey at King Faisal is the leadership support. We had the support from the get-go, from the CEO, from the C-suite, from the board on the HRO. And many of our leaders actually became executive sponsors to the main initiatives of the HRO. And now talking about the financial support, there is definitely return of investment if you implement a successful HRO. Now going down to below the leadership, so everyone in the organization, from the C-suite to the workers at the sharp end, and by the sharp ends, we're talking about the nursing, the physician, the pharmacist, the lab technician, and so forth, that actually provide the service to the patient. So those individuals need to be educated to understand the principles and how they affect decision-making process. And we have many initiatives within the HRO that focused really on the sharp end and equip them with behavioral skills that help in preventing harm. So doing that, it actually make the reliability a requirement for the organization instead of just a talking point. So it should be, it's not something that's nice to have, it should be something, it should be must to have. So leaders are often perceived of by the rank and file as never having the time and budget to do things right, but always having the time and budget to do things again. This is a key point when we talk about the return of investment. This is the statement, or this is the argument that we want to see. So making reliability as priority is the reversal of that paradigm. There is so much you can see. Half of the slide is leaders, because they are really the driving force for increasing the reliability of the organization. They need to link decision to safety. They need to start every meeting with a safety moment, and we have done that at King Faisal, where in every committee, every council, every meeting, we start the meeting with a safety story, a true incident that happened to a patient and what should have been done, and what can we do better the next time. Encourage reporting of incident. Our leaders actually have the reporting as one of the KPIs that they monitor, and there are targets. And in many occasions, those being addressed with different executives along the way. Thank and support those who speak up. We have tons of different programs, speak up, whistleblowers, and so forth, where we encourage staff to report. And there are few videos that have been produced projecting executives where they actually pledge to the staff to speak up. They should model and reinforce the use of error positive behaviors, and you will learn more on that. So a human error, a symptom is not a cause, and this is one of the second key messages. I can see that I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna go a little bit faster, but again, at the end, I'm happy to answer any question or if need any clarity. So the key concept here when we talk about human is that human error is not the cause of failure, it's symptoms of failure. If you conduct a root cause analysis and you found that, oh, the root cause of this misidentification is that the nurse forgot to identify. So forgetting is not the root cause. What actually made her forget is your system failure. So we need to identify that. Human error by any other name or by any other human should be the starting point of our investigation, not the conclusion, because we want to identify system failures. Probably many of you have seen this before. It's the iconic Swiss cheese model by James Reason in his book that helped us understand how error happened. So basically, he projected the barriers of the organization in healthcare as the Swiss cheese. The Swiss cheese has hole in them, and he said that in healthcare we have multiple barriers, but each barrier has a hole in it, so it's not complete. It has a faulty design. When those barriers holes align, that's when an error happens. So example of barriers could be the training, the distraction, the fatigue, and this barrier is the staffing. The team, which is the dynamic, could be the responsibility and clarity, the handover, the miscommunication. So it's the team dynamic. Those are the barriers that can help the patient or keep the patient safe from harm. Other barriers or defenses is technical, and that is the holes in that barrier could be the poor design, the fear maintenance, safety project not becoming a priority, and so forth. The organization, such in that particular, the culture or the lack of incomplete policies, and we saw it. And if we take COVID as an example, it's really the culture on how health system perceived the risk from the pandemic and how they reacted showed. And another layer or defense is the funding and resources. Lack of the funding and resources can contribute to many holes. As you can see here, we have multiple barriers, and when an incident happens, it's not just the failure in one barrier, it's probably multiple ones that we need to look at those. So what we can do, and that can help in preventing the error. So looking at the active errors by individuals and initiating actions, that can help, but that can never prevent. You cannot never eliminate it by just focusing on people, because as you can see, there are many holes. But looking at the system point of view, detect and correct the system weakness, you can close some of those holes, and you make it easier for the sharp enders to prevent harms. So basically, that's just an overview on how error happens. And if you reverse it, then this could be, this should be your preventative measures to mitigate harm and reduce harm. So buildings, and one of the tools that HRO uses to prevent errors really focus on the individual, the behavior, the understanding, increasing the situational awareness. So at King Faisal, we have the one team, and it's a whole set of skills that increase the vigilance, increase the communication, empower. So what you can see in front of you as an error prevention tools is commitment to safety. For example, the ARC or the ARCC, and it's around asking question, requesting a change, concern, which is verbalizing, I have a concern, and we should listen to the person when they say, I have a concern. Chain of command, using it to escalate, to try to solve a problem. Another initiative under commitment to safety is STAR, which is stop, think, act, and review. So STAR is within the individual. If I have a concern, or if I'm about to do a high risk process, I should stop, think. I should stop, take a pause, think about it, check on myself. Do I know the procedure? Do I have the required skills? Then act based on that, conduct or execute the task, and then do a reflection on what you did. Review what I did. Have I done it correctly or not? Also, some of the tools that is used is creating that environment and attitude and culture of questioning, validating, and verifying. Now, in even normal meeting, you would have somebody said, I need clarity, or can I verify this with you? So if you are not sure, you can ask somebody to verify it. If you're not sure, you can ask someone to validate the information. So the culture is fine. It doesn't mean that you don't have the knowledge required, but it shows that to increase the reliability of the organization, the staff always questions, try to validate and verify just to make sure that their action or what they heard is actually correct. So there are a lot of books that really advise for you guys find time and read, educate yourself. It will increase your subconscious understanding on high reliability. And there are many stories around on how vigilant individual helped in preventing catastrophe because they stop the line, they verbalize, and they ask for something to be more clarity. We have a short video, but I'm not sure, Al-Anud, if we have time. If we have time.
I think we have time, Nada, we can share it. So I'll stop sharing your screen and share it very quickly. It will be fun.
Yeah. In the interim, while Al-Anud is setting up the video, it's a clip from a famous movie. Probably most of you attended the whole. It's really amazing how the concept of human errors and all in every industry. So I'm gonna allow you to watch it, and maybe we can have some reflection on what caught your attention. Is the dialogue something you can have also within healthcare? And what is the lesson learned from this conversation? Go ahead.
I'll play it now.
Too low. Terrain.
50, 40, 30, 20.
Successful landing at Teterboro, runway 19.
Multiple airports, runways, 2 successful landings. We are simply mimicking what the computer already told us.
You know, a lot of toes were stepped on in order to set this up for today. And frankly, I really don't know what you gentlemen plan to gain by it.
Can we get serious now?
Captain?
We've all heard about the computer simulations, and now we are watching actual sims, but I can't quite believe you still have not taken into account the human factor.
Human piloted simulations showed that you could make it back to the airport.
No, they don't. These pilots were not behaving like human beings, like people who are experiencing this for the first time.
Well, they may not be reacting like you did.
Immediately after the bird strike, they are turning back for the airport, just as in the computer sims, correct?
That is correct.
They obviously knew the turn and exactly what heading to fly. They did not run a check. They did not switch on the APU.
They had all the same parameters that you faced.
No one warned us. No one said you are going to lose both engines at a lower altitude than any jet in history. But be cool. Just make a left turn for LaGuardia like you're going back to pick up the milk. This was dual engine loss at 2,800 feet, followed by an immediate water landing with 155 souls on board. No one has ever trained for an incident like that. No one. And the Teterboro landing, with its unrealistic bank angle, we were not the Thunderbirds up there. I'd like to know how many times the pilot practiced that maneuver before he actually pulled it off. I'm not questioning the pilots. They're good pilots. But they've clearly been instructed to head for the airport immediately after the bird strike. You've allowed no time for analysis or decision-making. In these simulations, you take in all of the humanity out of the cockpit. How much time did the pilots spend planning for this event, for these simulations? You are looking for human error. Then make it human.
This wasn't a video game. It was life and death. Sully's right, that's worth a few seconds.
Please ask how many practice runs they had.
17. The pilot who landed at Teterboro had 17 practice attempts before the simulation we just witnessed.
The reaction decision time will be set at 35 seconds.
35 seconds, not enough time.
We only had 208 seconds total, so I'll take it.
Upload the link.
Back to you, Nida. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Al-Anud. And I can see comment that many have actually watched the movie. I'm just gonna go back to my slides. The key message is here that you will, in healthcare, like in aviation, there is uncertainty. If you are not well prepared, you will definitely can make questionable decisions. In the clip, he saved the lives of 155, but the industry wasn't happy about how he landed in the Hudson River. So they put him in trial to prove that he didn't make the right decision, right? In healthcare, we do that. An incident happened, a nurse gave the wrong chemotherapy to a pregnant woman. For us, that's good information to start judging her, firing her for making that mistake, because obviously she should not have done that, and we need to do something about it. but neglecting the system around her that made it possible for her to make that mistake will result in having this happening over and over. What you saw with the pilot and the co-pilot could happen to another flight, and probably they will react exactly the same way. The human factors he spoke about, these are really the ones that we need to acknowledge and be prepared. And those are the ones that, for the most part, being dealt with as the root causes of a problem, but they are not. The system is factors probably are the ones that we need to focus on. Not probably, but for sure, those are the ones. So 10 keys to an effective root cause analysis program. Think long term. Focus on the right incident. Get started right away, so don't delay it, because there are fresh knowledge, fresh information that might be forgotten if you wait too long. Get the right people involved in the investigation. So you need people that being part of the incident, because they'll tell you the real story and what really went wrong. Get the data you need, because data can help you make your business case and can help you understand what went wrong. Use the standard techniques for data analysis. In every RCA, you should use the standardized process, because this is what considered reliable RCA process. Require the use of technique that identify underlying questions, such as the 5 whys, for example. Get management buy-in for the recommendation. We always say to understand what happened and how it happened, you actually talk to the individual that was part of the medical error. For the part to execute the action, you need the management team. So we need the buy-in from the beginning. Track recommendations for completion. And this is really one of the weaknesses that commonly happening in RCA full cycle, is that we don't follow through, we don't evaluate the action for completion, and we don't evaluate the action for effectiveness. And we need to look for long-term trends. So I'm so sorry, Al-Anud, I think it took almost 9 minutes from your time. But that is the first part and on HRO and high-level RCA. Now, with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Al-Anud, and she will take you into a ride to understand more on RCA. Al-Anud, off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nada, for the great introduction that we have today. And just give me a second to fix those. Okay. So I just would like to extend my appreciation to all of you for being with us today. And in my part, I will cover the practical approach for the implementation of root cause analysis in the essence of high reliability organizations. So before we dive deep into the RCA process implementation, let me just remind you with the different types of cause analysis. First one, the RCA, it's the famous approach, mandatory. We have to use it with different serious significant events. So the RCA, it's a structured problem-solving tool that results in one or more corrective action for specific outcome. As I mentioned, it's usually associated with serious and significant harm, required multidisciplinary team, and it is time-consuming. The next type is the apparent cause analysis, what we call ACA. Sometimes in literature, you may find it as intense analysis. This is another name for the apparent cause analysis. This is usually limited investigation. cause of an event, it's directly appeared and can be solved at the unit level. Usually it's associated with temporary harm or no harm incidents. Last part is the common cause analysis, where it's a methodology that we collect all the RCAs and ACAs that we've done throughout the year in order to identify localized or global conditions affecting the performance. Usually done annually, as I mentioned, to get overview of the common theme among your incidents causations. Basically, this is the RCA and ACA. It's part of your daily management of your incidents. So on daily basis, you need to identify those incidents that qualify for RCA, for example, or ACA. Most commonly ACA, because on daily basis you receive multiple incidents, temporary harm, and you are not harming, think about it in the magnitude of harm, you're not harming the patient significantly every day. But you need to look for those incidents and try, as mentioned by Nada, start as soon as you identify it to with the RCA for better outcome, for better gathering and collecting facts while it's fresh. This is like for effective implementation of RCA, you have to follow those simple steps that should start by initiation, screening, analysis, implementation, monitoring. This is the flow of any RCA. And in each step, you need to think about those questions as your checkpoints for successful implementation. Let's start with initiation. So you need to ask yourself, how do we hear about the event? And this is really tells a lot about your culture, your patient safety culture. You have a good culture of reporting. So did you hear about the event through your reporting system? Did you hear it verbally? Is it a patient complaint? Is it, just a gossip, for example, or complaining about department performance? So you need really, this is tell you a lot about your culture of safety and culture of reporting. Screening. Do we correctly classify those incidents? Once we receive those incidents, do we clearly or correctly classify them? And in the coming slide, I will explain more about the classification of how critical these steps in the effect in the successful and outcome of the RCA. Analysis. Do we do effective analysis for causes of event? Implementation, executive leader accountability. I cannot agree more with Nada, like about the importance and the role of leaders in successful RCA. So also in the coming slides, we'll see their role and how really they drive the change in the successful implementation of RCA. Monitoring. Do we evaluate corrective action effectiveness? We need to think about those questions along the way, as I mentioned, as our checkpoints that yes, we did. And this is just our roadmap, those tips, our roadmap for implementing the RCA process. As I mentioned earlier, initiation, just we finish initiation, we find the incidents. It was reported through our system of reporting. Coming after that, it's the screening part. where we have the safety event classification algorithm. And I would say that screening starts by correct classification of your incident, as I mentioned earlier. And I would say that this is the most critical step in RCA. Basically, if your classification is not correct, you may have a weak action or recurrence of the incident. And this is like most likely the error where people have. We don't classify our incidents correctly, then the RCA is not effective because we are not tackling the right issues. This algorithm is just a sample of event classification algorithm or decision tree, what we call it, either algorithm or decision tree. So this is just a sample, as I mentioned, and in our organization, we adopt that from Press-Ganey HBI. You may find other references such as WHO, ASRAM. There is multiple resources for safety event classification algorithm, and this is just to show you like how it is important. No matter what is your reference, this is very important for proper identification of the incident. So usually we start by asking the first question: was there a deviation from generally accepted performance standards? You have to answer either yes or no. If yes, then we'll follow the next question. If no, then exclude this incident from your reporting system, from your incident reporting. This is not a safety event. If there is no deviation from generally accepted performance standards, this is not a safety event. Exclude and do not waste your time on doing investigation on those incidents. Going back, if yes, then we need to understand and see if the deviation reached the patient. If a deviation reached the patient, if the deviation did not reach the patient, then we consider the incident a near miss. So there was a deviation, yes, from generally accepted performance, but it did not reach the patient. It was stopped before reaching the patient, then we consider this near miss. If the deviation reached the patient, then we will see what is the level of harm, what happened to the patient exactly. And this is what we call actual harm. Be careful. This is what happened to the patient, not what might happen to the patient. So exactly what is the result of that deviation? What is the impact of that deviation on the patient? So we'll ask the question, did the deviation cause moderate to severe harm or death? Yes, then this is a serious safety event. If no, this is a precursor event. A precursor event, sometimes in different classification, we call it temporary harm. So it depends on the taxonomy, on the classification that you use. You need to follow and stick with your organization classification and taxonomy. Very important to understand and to know that usually for any significant event, we consider it or we presume it serious safety event until proven otherwise. So this is your rule of thumb. Always put this in your mind. Any significant event, anything associated with, how can we see or how can we tell that this is a significant event? Any event associated with high alert medication, any event associated with like devices malfunction, return to OR, return or just admission to ICU or high critical area. So consider those significant, of course. So consider it serious safety event until you investigate and prove that no deviation or it is temporary harm or no harm otherwise. Another point that you have to keep in your mind, why we always say that sometimes we can just the nature of the description when the staff do the incident reporting, just mislead or give us like a misleading information. So this is really impact the classification. Sometimes nurses, for example, report certain items which may consider complication. And we need to understand that complication is not a deviation. Non-complication, it's part of the nature of the disease. And it's not a complication. We have set of questions that we need to ask to differentiate between deviation and complication. when can we say that complication considered an event to be reported? If the complication and risk was not or were not identified early and discussed with the patient and family. No mitigation. And now the coming slide it will show us the question exactly and how we can go through them. I'll just leave it for the next slide. This is another references from ASHRAM, and by the way, ASHRAM is the American Society for Healthcare Risk Management. Again, this is just to guide you and see the first question in that algorithm is, was there a deviation? And then it will guide you through the classification. Coming to the non-complication test. And as I mentioned, certain questions we have to ask. And if we answer yes to those questions, then we may consider this is confirmed complication. If the answer is no, then consider it as a deviation. So first question is, was the procedure, treatment, or test appropriate or warranted for the patient based on nationally recognized standard of care? Yes. Was the complication a known risk, and was the standard of care employed to mitigate the risk? So we know we are, in fact, before doing the procedure or giving the medication, identifying those risks, and we did a management plan or mitigation plan to reduce those complications. Yes. Was the complication identified in timely manner? So we anticipated those complications to happen. So we identified in timely manner and mitigated as appropriate. Yes. Was the complication treated according to the standard of care and done in timely manner? Yes. Then this is a confirmed complication, rejected and excluded. This is not a deviation. Okay. I just would like to say that this is coming with the practice. So the more you practice, the more you understand, the more you know how to differentiate between the deviation and complication. Another point that I would like to mention, classification is a very complex process. Sometimes certain incidents are like it's straightforward and you can just identify its deviation easily. Some incidents very complicated. It has multidisciplinary team involved in that incident. You need experts. You need to just have a group discussion among your patient safety, including your patient safety committee, chairman. Sometimes certain incidents, for the appropriate classification, you need to consult another entity. For example, expert hospitals around you in your local area. For example, you have to consult a joint commission. You need to ask experts how to classify this. This is considered serious event. And again, I cannot stress more and emphasize more on how the importance of classification, because it will guide us through the other step. Right classification will give us right outcome. Once we clearly decided that there was a deviation, and then we need to determine the level of harm. Remember, it's about patient, as I mentioned earlier, it's about patient, so we can call it actual harm. So this is what happened to the patient exactly. Many people have wrong classification because they classify the potential level of harm, not the actual. So patient had a wrong dose of, let's say antibiotic, extra dose or something, and then patient, the level of harm, when they reported, they said that. When you investigate, it is not death, actually. It is may lead to death because it's a high alert medication or a significant medication. So when you administer it to the patient, you anticipate that this is what might happen. But when we classify for events, we need to classify what happened to the patient. This is the level of harm. What happened to the patient exactly? We have in our model 3 level of classification, and this is like in different references. Also, they have using the same classification. Serious safety event, and this is deviation, and I would like to repeat the definition again for all of you, just to have it in your mind. So a deviation from generally accepted practice that reach the patient and result in moderate to severe harm or death. Okay. Precursor safety event or temporary harm, a deviation from generally accepted practice reaches the patient but result in minimal harm or no detectable harm. We cannot know if there is a detectable harm. Near misses, and it's a deviation from generally accepted practice. There is deviation, but actually, in fact, does not reach the patient. And for each kind of classification, we'll have the type of investigation that matches that level of harm. So for serious safety event, most likely we need to have root cause analysis for all of the serious safety events. Some precursor event also can be qualified for root cause analysis, and some near misses, in fact. It depends on the significance of that event, the potential impact. And sometimes no harm happened to the patient, but it is serious in nature, and it was just prevented because of luck. Because so in that case, we need to make sure that we have system in place to detect those errors, because we need to prevent the recurrence. In each classification, we have sub-levels that just give us like more information and a range of those classifications. For example, the serious safety event, it ranged from moderate temporary harm until death. So moderate temporary harm, severe temporary harm, moderate permanent harm, and severe permanent harm and death. And I would like to say that this is very critical. You need to understand those classification. You need to understand those examples, teach it, read about it more and more, and get more examples to understand how to. This is part of the training of your patient safety team, and also the people who will be involved in the RCA process in the future. So invest more on the training. This is very critical and very important. For just like we tend to focus on death and permanent harm, We just like this is obvious and can be identified easily. The critical part is between the moderate, serious temporary harm. So it is serious, but it's moderate harm or severe temporary harm, but it's a serious considered safety event. And sorry about that. And the precursor event, because it is a gray area between the minimal permanent harm or minimal temporary harm. So you need to understand what is the definition for each one for better classification. And this is coming with the practice. It's significant when it's associated, as I mentioned, with high alert medication, something very significant. So you need to consider it serious, as I mentioned, until otherwise proven different. Let me take this question. So what are the criteria for conducting a root cause analysis? I just mentioned some of the criteria, but let me see what do you think. Give you a few seconds just to answer. Let me read the choices. So event is a sentinel event, requirements of a regulatory body, significant event in nature that include precursor and near miss event, repetitive event, management discretion, all of the above. Okay, let's see the result. Great job. All of the above, it's the right answer. And just to emphasize, all sentinel event required RCA, and this is mandatory by, and I'm just talking about Joint Commission International, where we have our accreditation, and also our national accreditation, Sibahi in Saudi Arabia. So for all sentinel event, we are required to conduct a root cause analysis and corrective action plan and submit it within a time frame to our local regulatory body. Again, it's a requirement of regulatory body. Yes, this is correct. Significant event in nature, as I mentioned, sometimes it's now no harm reached the patient, but it is very significant. It can, if it's not corrected, and we have a plan in place to mitigate those incidents or those risks, the recurrence and significant harm may happen. Repetitive event, so you have an event and it's coming again, then you need to do a root cause analysis, therefore it's all of them. High reliability organization best practice for cause analysis. And just I will summarize some of the points that covered already by Ms. Nada in her part. Training for RCA techniques. It is very important. As I mentioned, screening, classification, it is part of the training, asking questions, what to ask. This is very important for successful RCA. And as you can see in the video, our traditional RCA may be focusing on the system and neglecting the human factors. And really in HRO, we tackle the human behavior and we focus on the human behavior side by side to the system as well. So training for RCA is very critical. RCA meeting model, I'll just in the coming slide, I'll have, I will share with you our meeting model. Executive sponsor. Again, maybe the keyword today in this presentation is leader, support, and a leadership role in conducting the RCA. Event investigation formally started, and this is very important. People need to know that this is a formal investigation. So participation, attendance to those meetings is mandatory and informally, and to assume their accountability and uh, participation on those events. Fact-finding interview. So there is in literature you find a lot of tools to guide you what to ask and how to ask. This is very critical. You need to get the you need to be very skillful in asking the question, making staff comfortable in giving you the answer. It's not to like question this stuff. It is about finding the facts and collecting the facts and finding the root cause, not to point finger on this stuff. Like the video as what happened with Salih. By the way, this is very nice video, and we teach this like and part of it, like the human factors, and also the implementation of just culture as well. Use of appropriate analytical tool. Mentioned by Nada, in our traditional RCAs and still within HRO, we have to use different tools that help us, like in collecting the information, displaying the information, and maybe prioritize our initiatives. So 5 whys, this is a famous tool that we use in healthcare. Fishbone diagram or cause and effect diagram. Pareto, flow charting. So your team or your patient safety team need to be very skillful, comfortable using those tools. Many, what I can tell you, like always, sometimes we go to workshops and training. We pay a lot of money studying those tools, but in fact, I can see that many people, when it comes to implementation, they don't apply it. Either they just go quickly, or just for the time it is time consuming sometimes to use certain tools. But please try to apply it. It's really fun and also a benefit. Using the tools in the investigation to really make a difference toward the outcome of your RC. Integrate the concept of human factor engineering, and I cannot agree more. Maybe one of the challenges nowadays in our, or maybe we need to have like certain initiatives toward having more courses or more training in human factor engineering, especially in healthcare. I think still this is not, discovered very well, and maybe in the future, from this, place, I just like encourage the Saudi Patient Safety Center, WHO, to provide, or to invest more on those courses. We really need it, and we need to have good training and in the human factor engineering, and also implementing the concept of human factor engineering in healthcare. Closing the loop through sharing lesson learned. And later on, we'll share the power of storytelling. And mentioned by Nada, it is very powerful for leaders to share those stories, to have a safety moment, to highlight, some of the RCAs or some of the incidents that happened, and share it as a lesson learned in each meeting. When the message coming from the leaders, it really make a difference to the frontliner, and because this is really matter for the leader, so it will be important also for the frontliner. As I mentioned, in our traditional RCA, we focus on the system. System failure, we always focus on the system enhancement, and in other words, we are focusing on the why. That represents system failures. And system failure always associated with structure, culture, processes, policy and procedures, technology and environment. HRO focuses also as well on the individual failure, on how this has happened. Competencies, this is a human individual traits, consciousness, communication skills, critical thinking, and compliance. So knowing those differences, and I'm highlighting this quickly, and in our practical example, I'll just elaborate more and give you more overview on that. The RCA team structure, can you see in red here? The RCA executive sponsor, senior leader, executive. It should be like somebody with authority, somebody with power to influence change, to drive change, to mandate, and to have certain authorization to do those changes. So first and most important is the RCA executive sponsor. After that, the RCA, their coordinator, and those responsible for management and facilitation of the RCA, usually those from quality management or patient safety. RCA analysts, and those staff, qualified staff, support the team. They have training in RCA tool and how to implement it. And sometimes, due to the resources and shortage in staff, the RCA team leader and RCA analyst can be the same. Subject, a stakeholder and subject matter experts. One of most important traits of our HRO principles is defer to expertise. This is very important. We need those in our RCA team. We need to know those people who are subject matter experts, who know the process, activities, technologies. They are very helpful and very essential. Their role is very essential in the successful RCA as well as the successful action plan executions, because they are the source of information. They know the environment, they know the processes, they know the operation, to be specific, the operations. So they are really our target group to be there. This is very debatable question. And to be honest, till now in the literature, like when you ask, what about people involved in the event? Do we have them in the among the team? And just put in the chat, what do you think? Or maybe what is your experience? We find it like in our organization and literature. Before I'll just share our experience in the literature, we say no. We shouldn't include them in the RCA. As a matter of fact, sometimes we feel this is like defensive. They feel they are questioned, and also sometimes bias, to avoid bias, not to involve those staff in the staff involved in the RCA. But we cannot ignore that they are the most, the primary source of the information, because they know exactly what happened. So we need to interview them one-to-one, meeting, in separate meeting, non-threatening and non-judgmental. As a matter of fact, sometimes we found that it's beneficial to add some of the involved people in the event. It gives us like more insight in the RCA, and having their point of view really matter. It depends on, I would say this is depend on the position. Sometimes physicians tend to be involved without feeling, the threat, or that we are questioning them. Nurses, most likely they feel threatening, they feel questioned. So it depends on the culture. And our role is to reduce the power distance and encourage staff to speak up. But for the sake of the RCA team structure, we ask not to involve those people, just to avoid the bias, and interview them in separate meeting before the RCA. Okay, move to the next. RCA meeting model. This is very, again, this is our, what we call the 3 meeting model. Again, it's adopted from HPI, Pisgini organization, and in collaboration with King Faisal. So we have created this model. You can see here, this is a way to visualize the meeting and to be focused and organized. So it's, as I mentioned, it's a way to be organized, increase the chances of the RCA and action plan success. 2 critical elements, as you can see in your RCA. First, the team, the RCA team, very important to include those impacted the RCA, people, leader, as I mentioned, who have decision. And also we need the support from the RCA analyst or the patient safety, people qualified in training, providing guidance and facilitate the team. The model, first step, which is the initiation when the event occurs. Don't forget to stabilize the situation. This is very critical. You have to, before doing the investigation and everything, we need to make sure that patient and family are safe, and do initial disclosure to make them understand what happened, and provide them with extra information, and so extra information as along the way. Provide them with the support needed to be stabilized. Control evidence, sometimes some evidence, some incidents associated with devices malfunction or something, sequester the evidence, because this is very important and play major part in your investigation. So those steps as part of your initiation before doing the investigation. We have a 3 meeting model. Meeting number 1, it's about fact, collect facts, focus on the facts. Many people, most of the time, in the first meeting, they try to do the action or corrective action. We don't like to jump to conclusion very fast, and this is one of the things that make the RCA very good, because you just not, again, you're not waiting to get all the information, collect all the information. You just go and just get the corrective action that seems perfect for you. at that moment without considering the different factors. This is very wrong. Usually, when we have ideas, sometimes people have good ideas during that meeting. Jot it down and have it saved and discuss it later on. Next meeting is the causes, and this is very important also. You need to determine the individual and system causes. Meeting 3, confirm the root causes and execute your action plan. Usually the corrective action should match the causes. Sometimes the causes something, and because you don't have the resources or because you don't have you did not tackle the right action, so you put something else as an action, education or policy change, while the causes maybe system failure or something like that. So be careful. The action plan should match the cause, because if you don't correct that cause, the chances of the incident to happen again is high, and then recurrence and maybe significant event to happen again and harm another patient. I cannot wait to start. So let's start with this case study, and we'll have some interactive question. Patient with the history of DVT, deep vein thrombosis, on warfarin. For those who don't know warfarin, warfarin is anticoagulant medication. The patient admitted for UTI, urinary tract infection, therefore a Bactrim was ordered. Bactrim is antibiotic. The next day, the patient INR was 5.2. Warfarin was held for several days, and the patient was monitored closely for bleeding. Let's classify the incidents. First, let's do the screening. So, was there a deviation from a generally accepted performance? Yes or no? Okay. Let's see the answer. Heba? Very good. I would say this is a great job. Okay, let's see the next question and we'll have a discussion. So most of you agree there was a deviation from generally accepted practice. For those who don't agree that there was a deviation, we'll discuss it later on. So let's stick with those agree that there was a deviation. So classify the deviation. The deviation reached the patient and caused serious harm, precursor harm, or near misses. Okay. Okay, so serious harm, precursor harm, near misses. Going back to the case, equal answer. I just would eliminate near misses, because if we agree that a deviation reached the patient, changing the patient condition, then it's not a near miss. Near miss, no harm to the patient. So there was a deviation, but did not reach the patient. So near miss should be excluded. We are between serious harm and precursor harm. I will go back to the case study. Okay, let's say patient with history of DVT on warfarin. We considered warfarin a high alert medication. It's very serious medication. Extra dose of warfarin may cause bleeding, and you have to put this in your mind when you think about your incident. Remember, this is one of the significant event. So we consider it what? We consider it serious until otherwise proven different. What happened is the patient is on warfarin actually, And he has an additional condition when he came to the for that admission, and has a back pain. What happened exactly? It's interaction between the antibiotic and the anticoagulation that led to changes in the patient condition. 5.2 could be considered significant high, and the risk of bleeding, the risk of deterioration, it's very high and associated with this case. Therefore, we consider this serious harm. So what is the level? It's temporary harm because the patient, temporary serious harm, because the patient, we catch or we manage what happened exactly to that patient in a timely manner. So warfarin was held for several days, and then the patient was monitored closely for bleeding and then discharged home. So classification for this incident is a serious safety event, and it is there was a deviation, and this is a serious safety harm. First meeting, we are collecting facts. So as mentioned by Nada, as you can see, this is our model for Swiss cheese. So always use this model to understand what happened and the barrier in your system, and how the incidents travel through through those barriers and reaches the patient. So let's organize the facts, and this is what we collected by interviewing. Just imagine that we interview the staff and have those information. So the resident first barrier, or first the incident started by the resident ordered Bactrim for patient on warfarin. Okay. It goes to the pharmacy. The pharmacist click through warfarin interaction alert when entering the order. So there was an alert that there is a possible interaction, and the pharmacist just clicked through that alert and entered the order. The technician saw the warfarin interaction, in fact, alert, but filled the order anyway. So we have two alerts here to warn us that there is something wrong, something might happen, but it was ignored for certain reason, and we'll understand what happened or the causes on the next slides. The nurse gave the patient the Bactrim, and safety event happened. A patient INR next day was 5.2. When you start the meeting, this is the fact collected sequence of event. So before we start the RCA, we need to, and this is one of the practice that we do in King Faisal. We have to set meeting objective. Simply, we need to make sure that we promote for psychological safety. We need to make sure that people here for one sole objective, which is patient safety, event investigation. It's not about them. It's not about questioning or blaming or assigning liability. It's about understanding what happened. Therefore, the objective is to seek facts, no fault, avoid hindsight bias, show support, emphasize on understanding of each one perspective. And I just would like to highlight that once we started to implement this, really we changed a little bit the mindset. People help receive the meeting. Before we noticed that we spend half the hour of the meeting just calming down everyone. It's not about you. It's it's not about it's not pointing the finger. So it is defensive sometimes, and turn like the heat is on those meetings. Meeting number 2, causes. Let's understand what happened. You can see that in any RCA model, also in HRO model, who did it? it's the least important in our CA. What's highlighted in blue, it's the most important, uh, the most important thing that we focus on, which is system failure, because we need to improve our system. Also, second to that, we need to understand the individual failure and improve our human behavior. So let's see the story and see, we'll start with who, the resident, as we mentioned in the Swiss cheese. The resident, again, what happened? This is the fact that we collected in our first meeting. Prescribed Bactrian despite warfarin interaction. How? Why the resident did that? New resident rotating through different units and did not know about the interaction. Why? Again, we're using the 5 whys just to, until we get the answer. So no formal orientation on high, and I'm sure that I spent, I just exceed the time, but I promise you quickly we'll finish. So no formal orientation on high risk drug interaction. Again, let's go to the pharmacist. The pharmacist clicked through drug interaction alert when entering the order. Why? Because the pharmacist was distracted when another pharmacist asked for clarification of another order. Why? In that hospital, no interruption zone at order entry observed in the department. Let's go to the technician. Technician, he filled the order despite not noting the interaction alert. Why? He saw the pharmacist approve the order and did not ask for verification. Interesting. Why? The pharmacist in the department get aggravated by questions the technician was afraid to ask. Last, the nurse. The nurse gave the Bactrim to patient and did not question drug interaction. The nurse was why? The nurse was a new grad and did not know about the interaction. Why? Medication documentation system does not integrate all interactions. Having those causes and thinking about them in this way just give us like more wider view. Especially our focus is the human factor. And asking like new residents rotating through different units did not know about the interaction. Remember the competencies that we discussed. So this is a competency. What is the individual failure here? Competencies, awareness. Distracted when another pharmacist asked for clarification of another order. So maybe communication, consciousness. So the pharmacist approved the order and did not ask for verification. This is, again, communication problem. We, in this culture, we're not empowering staff to speak up. Staff are afraid to speak up, to correct people mistake. Power distance is very high. Nurse was a new grad and did not know about the interaction. Maybe, again, similar to the resident consciousness, the environment, the critical thinking. So think about the behavior that mentioned by Neda in her slide. So maybe we can validate and verify. Maybe the resident, if the resident ask the consultant and ask for verification or validation for the information, maybe this incident will be prevented. What about the distracted pharmacist? So that pharmacist, he just stop, pause, use the star, stop, think, and think about the alert. Maybe it will reduce or prevent the incident. So we have multiple chances to stop the incident, but it was not stopped. What about the technician? The technician, if we empower the technician and we give him the authority to speak up, to call the senior pharmacist, for example, to validate and verify, that might stop. The new nurse, also again, if she validate and verify, with the senior nurses, this incident might stop and did not reach the patient. So beside the system, also we need to have the error prevention for human. We need to work on human behavior. And those the error prevention for human behavior proven to really prevent 80% of the incident. If we just think about what we are doing, if we use those tools, many incidents can be prevented on time. Did we find the root cause? We can say yes, we find it. If we removed or corrected, would the event have been prevented? And this is a question that we need to ask if to really answer that. Really, we find the root cause. Is the condition with the management control to correct? So can we control it ourselves, or do we need another team? Is condition substandard when compared to industry or best practice? What are the appropriate actions that the team should take in this case? Just for the time's sake, I will just quickly go over it. So to answer here, system enhancement and enhanced documentation, communication, and training, or establish new policy training assigned to staff for double check. Of course, we will take the first one. Why? Because it has a mix of the actions, strong, intermediate, and weak action. Last meeting, actions. So this is, you just answer it. So most effective, always start with design process for minimum error. We need to make it harder for staff to do mistake. This is what we call poka-yoka, or forcing function. Least effective, rely on knowledge, training, education. This is the least effective, but we are saying least effective. We are not saying don't use it. It's bad to use it. Many people think we need to use strong action all the time. Sometimes we don't have the resources, the ability to use those stronger actions. But we need to think about it. We need to have it, and it is based on the management decision. If we don't have the resources to implement or deploy stronger action, then the risk is still there. So we need to watch and monitor those risks and put in place certain plans to mitigate those risks before it happens. So this is just also the action hierarchy visually and you have to add it to the RCA meeting for people to visualize what kind of action, evaluate the action that will be created by the team, and think about, like the level of strength for those actions. After among the during the meeting, you need also to ask yourself, is there a chance that this event could happen elsewhere? So is this like a single event, or it can be repeated in different area? So do the root cause exist in other locations? So let's see if we can implement that root causes an action plan to the other area. Implementation, and usually we need to write down our root cause analysis action plan. Many people, and one of the weakest things that not to write exactly and assign accountability, responsibility, time frame to your actions. This is very critical. Responsibility, you need to assign it to certain individual, not a department. Keep this in your mind. Individual accountable to correct those actions. It needs to be written, signed, and communicated effectively. We just mentioned those. So leading the causes of action, why we are failed, hidden non-commitment. So there seems to be agreement in the action in the meeting, but later on the manager back out. So in the meeting they do agree with the action, but later on they just get out or back out of the from the action. Soft cost benefit analysis. Again, we tend to avoid the stronger action because it is sometimes requires system enhancement and it's costly. Don't do that. You have to have all the answers, all the actions, including the strong one, because this will show you that the risk is there and there is an option. And you need to do your return on investment. So you know that if you go with the costly solution, it may really save a lot for you. So you need to do this analysis. Constituent group resistance involved early in the process and rely on tactful diplomacy. So we need to involve those people, key people in the process area. And poor implementation accountability. Corrective action plan should have responsible parties, as I mentioned, by name and date. Make them accountable. Monitoring. So for monitoring, we need to create a loop through executive sponsor. The executive sponsor, the leader, should manage and monitor the execution of those action plan. We need to have a database to track those action. We need to have to issue periodic reports, review the action plan completion at senior leadership meeting. This is very important. In your Sentinel event committee, patient safety committee, PI council, you need to discuss those action plan, any challenges, issues that you need to raise it to the upper management to get the support in within the time frame. And you need to have certain performance measure that indicate the success of your action plan. For example, a number of actions, stronger action in your action plan, weakest action, type of action that you have. So a simple dashboard that should be, or simple action KPIs that needs to be shared quarterly, for example, just to monitor the status of your action.
Ms.
The
Hanout?
power, yes, Hiba, I'm sorry, I just exceeded the time.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to interrupt this informative presentation and a very interesting topic. But may I know how many slides still left?
Just few, maybe 2 or 3 slides, and maybe we can stop here in the power of storytelling, and
Yes.
another slide, and that's it.
Thank
I'm
you
sorry
so much.
for the exceeding the time.
No, thank you, thank you.
The power of storytelling, and again, sharing, make those action plan visible and communicated in simple format. You don't have to put all the information, the facts, but lesson learned, shared among your organization, maybe among a local level. And sometimes we really learn from those, safety alerts provided by Joint Commission or WHO or IHI. It's a good way to be proactive and find out if this is like in your organization and try to prevent it. It's a deja vu. So why event reoccur again? Maybe again, the root cause was not identified. You did not classify your incident right. So you did not have the investigation, the right investigation to apply. You avoid for near misses or because you think it's no harm reached the patient, nothing happened, so avoid studying them. Do not take time to understand why and aggregate those lessons. Overall, failure to implement corrective actions. Corrective action are effective, not effective or sustained, and failure to share lessons. Last but not least, I will stop here with the challenges, and this is a summary for all of you. Lack of commitment, accountability, this is very important. for any successful RCA, we need the full commitment, full accountability from all staff and stakeholders. It's a time consuming, so you need to dedicate time for this. And it needs sometimes resources such as staffing and budget, sustainability of the action, and changing mindset from reactive to proactive. This is very critical. And just to let you know that to change a culture, it takes more than 20 years. So you need everyday training. You need to don't give up. Keep going and change the mindset from reactive to proactive. Focus on incident that did not reach the patient. This is your way to be proactive. Continuous training for newly appointed leaders, residents, and fellows. This is very critical. Training is very important to make them engaged and involved. Long-term actions, and again, as we mentioned, the strength of action. With this, I would like to stop here, and thank you very much. And my apology for exceeding the time, but hope you enjoy it. And if we have time, Hiba, we can answer some questions.
We already.
Or maybe we can just we'll look at your question and maybe we can answer it and send it to you.
Or we can, for sure, we will answer their questions and maybe we will add it to the slides and share it, Aisha. So you can find it in our channel and the YouTube channel, the recorded webinar, fully presentations, and also the answer of the questions at the end of that recorded. We might add it there.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Ms. Al-Anud. On behalf of the Saudi Patient Safety Center, we would like to express our thanks and grateful for our speakers, Ms. Al-Anud, Abdel Fattah, and Ms. Nada Al-Harbi, and the audience for their active participation. As a part of the Saudi Patient Safety Center efforts to provide you with a timely topics and interesting speakers, we would appreciate if you would fill out the evaluation survey provided at the end of the sessions. Thank you for your joining us today, and we look forward to welcoming you back in our future webinars and activities. Thank you all.